Dave Ramsey says all debt is dumb. Well, I've used debt to go from the middle class to owning $51 million worth of real estate, all using other people's money. I love debt. He hates debt. We both can't be right. Spoiler alert, I'm not wrong. Now look, I respect what Dave Ramsey has done and what he's built. He has helped millions of people get out of bad debt and to have a proper budget to where they're able to live a little bit more freely and have a little bit more breathing room. However, his methods do not teach you how to build wealth. I think this argument can be best summarized as, if you want to not be poor, follow Dave. If you want to create wealth and financial freedom, follow me, because they are very different paths and there's very different strategies behind them. Aside from Dave Ramsey calling me a liar live on his show, I have nothing against the man. Scratch that. I know his strategy is not a way to create wealth. There are millions and millions of multimillionaires in this country. There's been one that anyone knows that has done it without using debt, Dave Ramsey. The other 99.99% of multimillionaires in this country have gotten that way using debt. So I'm going to go with the strategy that works for 99.99% of people and not go with the strategy that worked for one person. In this video, I'm going to show you why Dave Ramsey is wrong, why debt is a strategic tool, and how I used it to create financial freedom. You probably know who Dave Ramsey is, but regardless, let's go over his belief system. He believes that all debt is bad, no matter what. He believes you should only buy a house in cash or if you can pay it off in 15 years. He says avoid all rentals unless you're using cash, and debt equals risk. Now, I agree that debt does equal risk, but you know what else equals risk? Saving your money. If you save your money in a bank account, you'd be glad to get 1% return. Well, inflation is 2 or 3%, which means eventually the $10,000, the $5,000, the $100,000 you have in your bank account will be worth nothing because inflation will take over. The cost to own and buy and do things goes up so much that the value of the dollars in your bank account will go to zero or damn near close. Here's a perfect example. Here's what the purchasing power of dollars does in your bank account. In 1930, $1 equaled $1. In 1960, $1 equaled 56 cents, so almost half of the purchasing power gone in 30 years. In 1990, $1 equaled 13 cents, so much less than 50% of the purchasing power gone in 30 years. And today in 2025, $1 equals 5 cents worth of purchasing power. The value of the dollar goes down, so if your goal is to acquire more dollars and save more money, you are literally fighting a losing battle on a hamster wheel. And the other thing about debt equaling risk, yeah, that's potentially true, but what else is risky is not only saving your money, as I just mentioned, it's also risky to rely on a job your whole life. You can very easily be fired, the company can get acquired, your boss can get ticked off of you for a real reason or a not real reason. A board of directors at a company could make a dumb decision that affects employees. There are cutoffs and layoffs all the time. Well, hopefully you never have to meet that. You are not in 100% control if you're relying on someone else for your paycheck. Therefore, there is risk built in no matter what you do. At least with my past, the risk does lead and can lead to financial freedom. With his path, best case scenario, you're living for financial stability. All right, here's where my plan really starts to kick into gear. It's when you use debt to buy assets. Now, I'm not a huge fan of using debt to buy liabilities. If you borrow money to buy a car, there's nothing wrong with that if you can afford the payment, but that's not going to build wealth for you. If you borrow money to buy an apartment complex or borrow money to buy a rental property, that's where wealth is created. In a simplistic term, you borrow money, aka get into debt, to buy a wealth producing asset, real estate for this example. What you do is you take the cash flow and the equity that that asset, that real estate creates, and you pay off who you borrowed the money from. You're collecting extra income, your net worth goes up, you're getting tax savings, but eventually you will pay off that debt and you will own an asset 100% outright with no debt on it if you so choose, and you can only do that if you get into debt. There are a couple different ways to leverage. Number one is putting 20% down. If you want to own a $100,000 house, you can put 20% down or $20,000 down in cash and leverage or finance the other 80%. You're owning 100% of a $100,000 asset, but you only had to put $20,000 down on it. That is leverage. If you want to own $100,000 in Bitcoin, you have to put $100,000 of cash into Bitcoin. If you want to own $100,000 of Tesla stock, you have to put $100,000 of cash into that Tesla stock. Real estate allows for leverage, aka debt, because it is such a powerful wealth building tool. Let's take my very first house as an example. I utilized the BRRRS method, which stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and systemize. I have a ton of videos on it on this channel. In fact, I will send you one at the end of this video. However, I used that BRRRS method to own a $125,000 house. I used none of my own money, all other people's money. I had a house that was worth $125 grand that I owed $100,000 on. I didn't use any of my own money to do that. I used debt and smart leverage to do that. I did not have enough money to buy a $125,000 house. So I used the BRRRS method and leverage to do it. That was 2014. 11 years later, that $125,000 house is worth $260,000. 11 years later, that $100,000 mortgage is paid down to $60,000. So I have $200,000 of equity in one rental property that I use other people's money, aka debt, to buy. You cannot do this with cash. You cannot do this with saving your money. You have to be willing to smartly leverage other people's money to buy assets, and real estate should be those assets. And if you do that, you can create wealth relatively quickly, unlike Dave's plan of save, 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 pay off, pay off, pay off, save, 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 maybe then start to invest. With Dave's plan, you're not going to start to actually accumulate any wealth until you're into the plan for 20, 30, 40 years, and you can maybe retire at 65 or 70. With my plan, it adds fuel to that wealth fire, and you can retire, and we have students all the time retiring and quitting their jobs in less than 5 years. Yes, there's some risk involved, but that's why you get some type of mentor or some type of coach to help you negate that risk. You follow their systems, you follow their processes, and boom, you are an expert from day one, and you're doing it the right way, like all wealthy people do, without the risk or with limited risk. Here's why debt is a strategic tool. The leverage can help you accelerate your growth. If you want to buy 5 rental properties, you can use $100,000 as your 20% down payment on all of those properties and use $100,000 to own $500,000 in assets. Or you can use the BRRRRS method like I teach, and I'm going to show you at the end of this video, that will allow you to buy unlimited properties using none of your own money. The cash flow pays off the loan plus all owning expenses plus positive cash flow left over. The real estate goes up in value over time while the tenant pays the mortgage down, which compounds your wealth, compounds your equity, and you get tax savings for owning real estate assets. I do pretty well for myself, but I don't pay any money in taxes because I buy real estate using other people's money. And the beautiful thing is you can do this as many times as you want. You control the asset, you control your financial future, and you have true financial independence. You're not relying on a job or a boss to pay your bills. And the data does not lie. According to the Federal Reserve, the average real estate investor, meaning somebody that owns real estate, has a 44 times higher net worth than those who rent from them. And I don't know any real estate investor besides Dave Ramsey that utilizes cash. They all use leverage to get that 44 times higher net worth. And the average millionaire owns leveraged real estate. So in summary, if you want financial independence and financial freedom to do what you want, with who you want, when you want, you must understand how to properly leverage debt. Of course, you can do it irresponsibly, just like anything else. However, if you do it the right way, there is no faster, no more efficient, and no more proven way to fill up your bank account actively, to build long-term wealth, and to save money in taxes than borrowing money to buy real estate. If you want to do it the right way, I have some free training in the description of this video that can help you. And also, here's a video over here where I walk you through the BRRRRS method, which is the exact step-by-step way to buy real estate using other people's money. Hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe if you did. See you on the next one.